here's the thing. When it comes to witchcraft, you don't need all the fancy tools in order to be a good witch, okay? You don't need a crystal ball the size of a bowling ball. You don't need enough space to draw a chalk pentagram on the floor big enough for you to lie down on. Now, if you do have or want those things, if you have the budget, hey, that's your money. It's perfectly valid. That's fine. I just like to emphasize that you don't need those things in order to be a good witch for those of us on a budget. But some people want various tools for various reasons and want to know how to use them and where to get them. So that's what we're here to discuss. I have discussed this on my podcast before. Yes, I have a podcast. It's called the Tea Time Podcast. You should listen to it. I'll link it below. But even though I've talked about this before, I thought it would be a good idea to provide some visual aids, which now that I think about it means that I will have to go back upstairs to my altar room. I did not think filming this through, but it's fine. Visual aids for certain kinds of tools and how to use them might be useful. And we're also gonna talk about some funny anecdotes from when I was starting out and learning how to use these tools. Because if there's anything that I've learned from Dan and Phil, talking about your mistakes on the internet is great entertainment. So with all that being said, here's the tea. This is Ice Mountain, but hey. So first, where do you get witchy tools? There is always Amazon. And hey, if that's all that is accessible to you, it is what it is. You can search lots of beginner witchcraft stuff. You just have to be careful because some of the crystals might be fake. There might be white sage in there, which we are not supposed to use for several reasons. So just be sure to read descriptions, read reviews, and be careful. Stores like Five Below have whole witchy sections, but again, same thing. The crystals might be fake. I've definitely seen Five Below having white sage, just bleh. And overall, the stuff just might not be very good quality. But again, hey, if you're on a budget, you make do with what you can do. But I mean, you can get candles, incense, and essential oils from Walmart. Just be careful because some of the really cheap synthetic stuff might not be safe to inhale. And also be aware of what fragrances and oils are and are not safe for pets if you have any. If you live somewhere like a dorm where you can't have lit candles, battery operated is just fine. Of course, there's always various small witchcraft businesses like mine, and I hope that you'll support my business and other witchy small businesses online. That's a really big thing right now, but I also understand that with certain things you might want to see them in person before you purchase them, which brings us to witchy metaphysical shops. My first time in a metaphysical shop was a whole thing. I was just beginning to dip my toes into the witchy world. I was just doing Christian witchcraft. I had not brought any pagan deities into my practice, and I was still very scared of a lot of things. I was still in the very beginning process of my deconstruction journey and was still a very timid little beginner. But I was scrolling through Instagram one day as I had started following some more witchy content creators. I had just joined TikTok, and I found this one page of this person doing this like beautiful like love spell ritual with a cauldron. And again, I was so new to this. I'm like, wait, cauldrons are real? Like you can get a cauldron? Like that's so cool. And it seems so obvious now in my practice. Like, yeah, you can get a cauldron. But at the time, I was mind blown. So my little beginner self comments on this person's Instagram page, this is really pretty, this is so cool, but where does one acquire a cauldron? And thank God this person was nice because there's this whole problem with like non-beginners being dicks. I'm gonna have to censor that, aren't I? Being mean to beginners. So thankfully this person was so nice and again was like, oh, you can get it on Amazon or your local metaphysical shop. And I just remember thinking to myself, metaphysical shop? I've never heard of such a place. So once again, I went to my phone and simply typed in metaphysical shops near me. And wouldn't you know, there was one in the next town over, like 15 minutes away, And it was just down the street from the house where I was babysitting at the time. I was a nanny. I went to that house every day, and this shop was literally just down the street. So I saw this as like fate. I need to go and see this shop. Things were kind of Now, this was during the pandemic, but it was around the time that things were kind of starting to open up again. You just had to wear a mask everywhere. So I was in Valparaiso because my university at the time was not doing classes in person. So I was living with my parents in Valpo. So if you're from that area, you might know what shop I'm referring to. I'm not gonna say the name because I have some criticisms of it now that I know a bit more about witchcraft. Now, old time magic in Hobart is awesome. Time spelled T-H-Y-M-E. That place is great. This is a different shop. I don't remember, I was in the broom closet at the time. I don't remember what I told my family when I was going out on these excursions. I didn't really get questioned much. I think because we were like half in lockdown, half not in lockdown. I think I just said like, I need to get out of the house. I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna go to the park down the street, whatever. When really, I was getting witchcraft stuff. So I drive to this shop, and you gotta know, I was in this weird position where I was following more witchy content creators online. So I knew that my preconceived evangelical notions of witchcraft were wrong. And yet I still just had this fear of what I was walking into. Like, what if it's this dark, dank cave with like sacrificing animals and candles everywhere? I knew that that was not the case, but as anyone who suffers with anxiety knows, when you're in the midst of extreme anxiety, there is no logic, okay? Like, I was also scared that someone would recognize me. Like, obviously, no one who knew my family and was in that evangelical space would be going into a witch shop. But what if they were across the street and they recognized me and they saw me going in and they told my family? Thankfully, that did not happen. But I was so scared of that. I was like completely covered up, like hood and sunglasses on a secret mission. What would I encounter? Would I walk in mid-ritual? Would there be some old hag sitting there stirring a giant cauldron? Because I know that those are a thing now. Double, double, boil and trouble. I had a lot of issues back then, but ultimately I bravely decided to go inside. I approached the building and I slowly crept up and pushed open the glass door. Approached the building. What ultimately brought me back to reality. Gonna put them back. Oh. I was then very politely greeted by a cashier with green hair. Need any help finding anything? What ultimately... Okay. Thank you. The shopping. Is this gonna be cashier with green hair? And I got to shopping. It was literally just a regular ass shop. Here we get to the things that I actually bought and have continued to buy. Tools, actually the main point of the video. But let me know if you like me doing the story time sketches, cutaway things, whatever. I'm trying new things. They do well on TikTok, so I figure maybe they do well here. So let me know. But let's actually get to talking about some tools. Pretend the green-haired cashier in that last clip was wearing a mask, because she was in real life, and I just suck. It's a new day, because I did not have time to finish this video yesterday, but you know what? At least I'm filming. So let's actually start talking about some tools. We're just gonna deal with it, I guess. Now, unfortunately, a lot of my very beginning of my practice tools are no longer with me because they got destroyed. If you know, you know. But there is something that I still have that survived that calamity that I have from that very first time I went into a metaphysical shop, and that is this Angel Power Wisdom Cards deck. Now we're going to talk about the difference between Oracle and Tarot in just a sec, but why did I choose this deck in particular? 3 reasons. 1, I didn't understand Tarot yet, but I wanted some kind of cards to utilize in my practice. 2, If you look at the back of this, it shows you like an example of one of the cards, and the meaning of the cards are on the cards. And that's not the case for every oracle deck or tarot deck, but if you can find something like this as a beginner, it is really useful. And finally, I was still scared of certain witchy things as a victim of evangelical brainwashing, and angels just felt safe. I don't use this deck a ton anymore because I have others, but this was my first deck ever, so I will keep it forever. But let's get into some differences between tarot and oracle. Think of tarot how you would think of any other deck of cards. There's different suits in a deck of playing cards, right? Hearts, spades, clubs, and the other one. Tarot is typically organized in that way with various suits. So let's take a look at a few. So first we have the Modern Witch Tarot, which is the closest thing that I have to like the OG Rider-Waite tarot deck. It's kind of a remake, more diverse version of that. And then we have some of my other decks, the Skyrim deck, the Dark Crystal deck, and the Nightmare Before Christmas deck, because I'm a fucking nerd. I'm gonna have to bleep that out. Dang it, I am not used to YouTube yet. So we're going to analyze the Modern Witch Tarot deck first because, like I said, it's the closest thing to your typical tarot deck. So I just picked some random cards. The Sun, Nine of Swords, Page of Cups, Eight of Pentacles, and Four of Wands. Now, some tarot decks will follow this exact format with the major arcana and then the suits of swords, cups, pentacles, and wands, just with different artwork. But then some tarot decks put a different spin on it. So if we take a look at my Skyrim tarot deck, okay, the sun, same thing, just different artwork. The suits are different, but have the same meaning. So instead of swords, we have arms. Instead of cups, we have the voice. Instead of pentacles, we have lockpicks, and instead of wands, we have spells. And this is just to fit the theme of Skyrim. If you've ever played Skyrim, this makes perfect sense. Now let's take a look at my Dark Crystal tarot deck. Again, the sun. But once again, the suits are different. We have stones, vials, gems, and shards. But again, if you've seen Dark Crystal, it makes sense. But also, even with the formatting, it kind of makes sense. Swords are a weapon. In the world of Thra, I'm sure stones could be seen as a weapon. Cups, vials, same thing. Pentacles, gems, money, same thing. Wands, shards, you can kind of see how that makes sense. And also, some tarot decks may have slightly different interpretations of the cards, but the overall theme is going to be the same. The sun still means like happiness and overall joy. Nine of Swords and Nine of Stones are still going to represent like anxiety and depression. This is just another slight variation, but they overall mean the same thing. And finally, we'll look at my Nightmare Before Christmas deck. This is not just a big excuse to show off my cool decks. The sun. But instead of swords, we have needles. It means the same thing, just a different variation of it to fit the Nightmare Before Christmas vibe. But you can see why they would use needles if you've seen Nightmare Before Christmas, and you can see how they got that from swords. Instead of cups, they use potions. Instead of pentacles, they use presents. And instead of wands, they use candles. They mean the same thing. It's just about fitting the vibe. And again, some tarot decks will follow this exact format with swords, cups, pentacles, and wands. Maybe just different artwork. But overall, tarot decks have about the same cards with the same meaning. Sometimes have suits. Now, oracle decks might sometimes have suits similar to playing cards or tarot cards. You're not going to see that as often though. It's usually a lot more free-flowing, and if there are suits, they're not going to be in the same format or have the same meaning as tarot cards. Let's look at some examples. We've got the Oracle of Heaven and Hell, the Pure Magic Oracle, and the Angel Wisdom Power cards that I showed you earlier. Though really quick, something that I forgot to bring up earlier about tarot decks is that sometimes a tarot deck will have different meanings if you pull the card upright or in reverse. Not every tarot deck has that though, so be sure to read the guidebook and see if the cards should be read upright or reversed. But the reason why I bring that up is because sometimes oracle decks have upright and reversed meanings. You can see it right here on the cards. And the meanings of the cards are right there. But not every oracle deck is going to do that. So for example, neither of these have reverse meanings. You're just meant to read them upright. As you can see, this kind of has suits, like the cards are different colors representing the elements, but it's still pretty loose. There's no suits in this deck and there's no suits in this deck. They're just kind of their own thing. With the angel deck, some of the cards are horizontal, but that's really just for the sake of the artwork. The meanings of the cards are on this deck. You can kind of interpret some of the meanings of the cards on this deck, but really for this one, I usually find myself reading the guidebook for more details. TLDW, tarot cards follow a format, oracle cards are their own thing. But now let's get into talking about some other tools you might find yourself using. Candles! As a whole is that each color has a different meaning. I will put a little graphic of all of the color meanings here in 3, 2, 1. Credit to Spells 8 for this nifty little graphic. Remember, this doesn't just have to do with candles. This is colors in witchcraft as a whole. So that could be the color of your clothes, your crystals, your jewelries, whatever you want to do with whatever you have to match your intent. Now, you might use candles for spells, which seems pretty obvious, but you also might use them as a way of honoring your deities. Link in description, #spawn. Next, we have bells. If you're trying to cleanse your space, but you can't use like burn bundles or incense, bells are a great way to get rid of negative energy. For the headphone users, I'm gonna ring this in 3, 2, 1. They also make singing bowls for this, or you can just clap your hands. But there are things like incense and burn bundles. Just again, remember to verse yourself on what plants and fragrances are and are not safe for pets. But certain herbs have lots of correspondences too. For example, lavender on a scientific level makes you relax. So you might use a lavender scented incense or a lavender burn bundle to create a relaxing environment. Next, we have crystals, and I'm just gonna grab the first one I can see. This is a chunk of obsidian. Now, I'm using crystals as an umbrella term here because technically speaking, geology-wise, obsidian is not actually a crystal, it is glass. It's volcanic glass. But witches kind of use crystals as an umbrella term for cool rocks, even if they're not technically crystals. So the thing is, you gotta learn what crystals are associated with and what herbs are associated with in order to use them. I always say, learn your colors first. Study that little graphic that I just showed you because that will help you branch out with the rest of things. So you probably saw that the color black is associated with protection. Therefore, obsidian is associated with protection. You can set it down next to your candles while you're doing spell work. You can put it in your pocket. Some of us put them in our bras, your backpack, your wallet, your purse. Carry around a little protection with you anytime, or whatever that particular crystal is associated with. You might put citrine or pyrite in your wallet for prosperity. Next, there's herbs. That's the first one I got. This here is mugwort. Now, again, I'm using herbs as an umbrella term because really one of my favorites, where is it? I can't find it, but my favorite herb is elderberry, which botanically speaking is not an herb, but in witchcraft we tend to use herbs, like I said, as an umbrella term for any magical plant-based item. Roses, not an herb. It's a flower, but it still falls under the witchy category of herb. Again, how do you learn herb correspondences? But again, how do you learn herb correspondences? I'ma say again, learn your colors. Yellow is associated with joy, so you can use some chamomile in your happiness spells. Scientific level, as we talked about with lavender. But correspondences, again, purple is associated with divination. Therefore, in addition to relaxation, you can also use lavender for divination rituals. Mugwort makes you sleepy and gives you some whack-ass dreams. So, again, just scientifically, right? So you can use it for dream magic. Raspberry leaf is great for menstrual cramps, pregnancy, so using it for fertility spells. Be that literal fertility if you're trying to have a baby or have a healthy pregnancy, or fertility as in like fertile crop or growth opportunity type things. There's also things that we just kind of know as symbols in our society. Roses are associated with love. Use roses in love magic. And finally, there's folklore. Whether you work with the Greek gods or not, we've all heard the story of Hades and Persephone and the pomegranate. Therefore, pomegranates are associated with underworld deities as a whole. Death magic, which really just means transformation, the underworld in general, things like that. Next, we have sprays. Once again, link in the description. There's all kinds of sprays out there, and with witchy sprays, it'll tell you what it's for. So that makes it easy for you. This is protection spray. So use it in protection spells. Spritz it on yourself for some spiritual protection before you leave the house. Bang, boom. Not every company does this, but I do. I tell you what fragrances and oils are in the sprays. So for example, dragon's blood, ylang ylang. Is that how you say it? I've only ever seen it spelled. I've never heard anyone say it. And bergamot. So in those cases, it's like, okay, there's 3 more things that are associated with protection. Next we have oils. Link in the description. I'm not the only one that sells like oils and sprays, by the way. I have to advertise my business. This is money oil. Put a few drops on your money candle or around it when you're doing your spell work. Dab a little bit on your skin and just, manifest prosperity throughout the day. And again, I also put what is in this right on the label. Cinnamon, chamomile, and orange peel. There you go. 3 more things associated with money. Water. This one is really easy because science tells us that water holds memory. So if you suck at drinking water, but man, you want to do witchcraft, a thing that you can do is just kind of hold it and think or whisper or just outright say what your intent for the day is. I'm going to be productive today, and drink your water. Boom, you just did witchcraft. This also works with coffee and tea and other water-based beverages. But drink water! You may have also heard of witches making what's called moon water, and there's a couple ways to do this. In the most basic of basic terms, you take some plain old water and you set it out under the moon. And that's it. The basic things in your spell work, like manifesting or just adding a little bit of boost to your spells, like sprinkling it a little bit around your spell type thing. Dab a little bit of it on your skin. Drink a little bit of it, as long as you didn't put anything else in it. But sometimes the new and full moons have various correspondences and associations. You might see some witches being like, this moon is great for letting go. This moon is great for bringing on productivity. So if you want to use the specifics of what that particular moon that month means, you can, but that can get a little complex. Don't be afraid to keep it at the basics. So I have eclipse water. I was right in the line of fire of the solar eclipse earlier this year. It was so freaking cool. And I made sure to put out a jar of water to get charged by the power of the eclipse. This is heavily associated with big time transformation. This jar is still full because I don't use it very much, but I also have like a water bottle that I have, and I use it sparingly because I only have so much of it, and then once I'm out, I'm out. But again, if I need transformation, if I need something fixed, I'll sprinkle a little bit on my spells, and that water bottle, I microdose a little bit, drink a little bit. Shit's powerful, so I'm not about to be chugging it or anything. I gotta censor that again. I suck at this. But because I didn't put anything else in my eclipse water, I literally just put a bottle of Ice Mountain outside, then it's safe to drink. But if you put other stuff in your waters, it's not going to be safe to drink. This is my super jug of super blue moon water that I made blue by putting mica powder in it. That in of itself, you don't drink this. So then, how do I use it? I might use it to like anoint my hands before doing spell work. Or again, I have some of those little dropper things. I'll squeeze it in the dropper and just kind of sprinkle it around my spell work if I need a little oomph. This stuff is also very powerful, but there's not going to be another super blue moon like this one until 2037. So I made sure to make a lot, and again, I also use it very sparingly. Now, I also will sometimes collect just regular ass moon water, and that I'm not afraid to chug or use more of because, hey, there's gonna be another moon next month. Florida water is alcohol. Don't drink that. It's not the drinking kind of alcohol either. Salt. You can use good old table salt for protection. Sprinkle it outside your doors and windows. Or, link in the description. Black salt. As we discussed, the color black is associated with protection, and while table salt is fine, again, this just kind of adds that little extra oomph. Now, not to brag, but the black salt that I eat is technically edible. There is activated charcoal in here, which could affect certain medications, so please do research beforehand. But if it is safe for you to eat, just you can sprinkle it in little small amounts on your food and kitchen witchcraft bang boom. Or, like I said, sprinkle it outside. Sprinkle it around your spells. Put some in a little jar like this and keep it in your bag or make it into jewelry. You're also gonna wanna start hoarding a bunch of jars if you're starting witchcraft. It's just, you're gonna need them. Some businesses will also sell things like green salt for money, red salt for passion, salt. Bath salts too. If you got bath salts with like roses and oil or flowers and oils and stuff, you that's a whole spell right there. You could do a whole bath ritual with bath salts that you can get from Walmart. We talked about tarot and oracle cards, but there's also other divination tools like runes, pendulums and pendulum boards, pouring wax into water and seeing what shapes you get. Remember being a little kid and you would look at the clouds and see what shapes you could see? That's divination. Reading tea leaves, whatever you want to do. And overall, use what you have available to you. Lots of herbs and spices you can get from the Dollar Tree. If you want to have a spell like work fast, use coffee. If you want your spell to be like really strongly connected to you, use a little piece of your hair or your fingernails. Those are called tag locks, by the way. Or, obviously, I would never like pull my cat's whiskers or claws or anything like that, but sometimes they just fall out. I collect them around the house, have them in a jar, use them in protection spells. I have a whole bag of cicada husks for transformation. If I ever see mushrooms growing in my yard, you bet I'ma pick them. I have a pine cone over there that I found in my yard. Oranges, lemons, associated with prosperity and other things, get them at the grocery store. It doesn't have to be complicated. Okay, I think that's everything. I tried to keep this kind of condensed. This is gonna be like a half-hour long video, isn't it? I love how I said before, like, oh, I'm just gonna keep my YouTube videos really basic, and I'm continuing with not doing that. But I hope that you guys still liked this. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any more questions. And I have a couple more videos planned. So let's hope that I can keep this up. All right. See you guys later. Bye. Wait, no. Look at everything in the description. Patreon, store, all that stuff. Okay. Now bye. Love you. Double, double. So basic things. Yeah. Really changed my outfit just for that 2-second skit. Thank you. Okay. Broke out the boyfriend's very expensive Ray-Bans for this. Gonna put them back very nice. I need to wear my glasses more. I look kind of good with green hair. Is this gonna be my quarter-life crisis look? Tune in to find out.